The sun was setting over the desolate city, casting an eerie orange glow over the abandoned streets. The sound of moaning and shuffling could be heard in the distance, a constant reminder of the danger that lurked around every corner. Our group, consisting of 6 survivors, huddled together in an abandoned building. We had been on the run for weeks now, ever since the zombie apocalypse began. It was a virus, a parasite that had spread through the population, turning people into mindless, flesh-eating creatures. But what made this outbreak different was the fact that the parasite didn't need the zombie's body to survive. We had learned this the hard way, as we had encountered a zombie that had been torn apart, yet the parasite was still alive and able to jump to another body. It was a terrifying thought, knowing that even if we killed the zombies, the parasite could still survive and continue its rampage. But that wasn't the only thing that made this apocalypse unique. We had also discovered that the parasite could sew bodies together, creating grotesque and deadly creatures. We had seen these monstrosities, with multiple heads and limbs, roaming the streets. It was a reminder that we were no longer at the top of the food chain. Our leader, Marcus, had been the one to come up with the idea of staying in one place for a while. We had been constantly on the move, trying to find a safe place to settle, but it seemed that every place we found was already taken by other survivors or infested with zombies. So here we were, in this abandoned building, with only a few supplies left. We had been lucky enough to find some canned food and bottled water, but it wouldn't last us long. We needed to find a way out of this city, but with the constant threat of zombies and the possibility of encountering one of those stitched-together creatures, it was becoming harder and harder to come up with a plan. We need to find a way out of here, Marcus said, his voice filled with determination. We can't stay in one place forever. But where do we go? Sarah, one of the other survivors, asked. Every direction we've gone, we've hit a dead end. We need to be smarter about this, Marcus replied. We need to find a way to lure the zombies away from here, create a distraction so we can make our escape. The rest of us nodded in agreement, knowing that Marcus was right. We needed to be strategic if we wanted to survive in this new world. As we discussed our plan, we suddenly heard a loud crash from outside. We all froze, our weapons at the ready. Slowly, we made our way to the broken window, peeking out to see what had caused the noise. What we saw sent shivers down our spines. It was one of those stitched-together creatures, a mass of flesh and limbs, tearing through the streets. And in its grasp was a group of survivors, screaming and struggling to break free. Without hesitation, Marcus gave the signal, and we all rushed out, weapons blazing. We had to save those survivors, they were our only hope of finding a way out of this city. It was a chaotic battle, the creature was strong and fast, but we managed to take it down. As we helped the survivors to their feet, we noticed that they were all covered in bite marks and scratches. They're infected, Sarah whispered, her eyes filled with sadness. We have to take them with us, Marcus declared. We can't leave them behind. And so, we continued on our journey with our new group of survivors. It wasn't easy, as some of them succumbed to the infection and had to be put down. But we never gave up hope, knowing that we were all in this together. With the help of our new companions, we were able to come up with a plan to escape the city. It was risky, but it was our only chance. We would create a distraction by setting off explosives in one part of the city, while the rest of us made a run for it in the opposite direction. It was a tense and dangerous journey, but we made it out alive. As we left the city behind, we knew that the fight was far from over. The zombie apocalypse was still raging on, and the parasite was still out there, waiting to infect more victims. But we were survivors, and we would continue to fight, no matter what obstacles came our way. We were a family now, bonded together by the horrors we had faced, and we would do whatever it takes to stay alive in this new world. My name is Jack, and I've been living in the wasteland for as long as I can remember. It's a harsh and unforgiving place, but it's home. I've seen my fair share of tragedy and loss, but I've also witnessed moments of bravery and hope. One of the biggest threats to our survival in the wasteland are the super mutants. They're irradiated humans, mutated into towering, aggressive creatures with a thirst for blood. They roam the wasteland in packs, terrorizing any survivors they come across. We've learned to avoid them at all costs, but sometimes they come looking for a fight. I was out scavenging for supplies one day when I heard the sound of gunfire in the distance. It was coming from a nearby settlement that was under attack by a group of super mutants. Without hesitation, I ran towards the sound, knowing that I had to help my fellow survivors. As I got closer, I could see the destruction and chaos that the super mutants had caused. Buildings were on fire, people were running for their lives, and the mutants were wreaking havoc with their massive weapons. I knew I had to act fast. I pulled out my trusty laser rifle and took aim at one of the mutants. With a steady hand, I fired, hitting it right in the head. It let out a loud roar before collapsing to the ground. I quickly took cover behind a nearby car as the other mutants turned their attention towards me. Who the hell are you? One of them shouted, his deep voice echoing through the air. Just a survivor trying to help out, I replied, keeping my rifle trained on them. Well, you picked the wrong side to be on, another mutant growled, charging towards me with a massive sledgehammer. I rolled out of the way just in time, narrowly avoiding the swing of his weapon. I quickly got back to my feet and fired at the mutant, but he was too quick, and dodged the laser blast. He swung his hammer again, this time hitting the car I was hiding behind and sending me flying. As I tried to regain my bearings, I saw another mutant approaching me with a flamethrower. I knew I had to act fast, so I pulled out a frag grenade and tossed it towards him. The explosion sent him flying, and bought me enough time to get back on my feet. I continued to fight against the mutants, taking cover and firing whenever I could. But they just kept coming, seemingly endless in their numbers. I knew I couldn't take them all out on my own, so I needed to come up with a plan. I looked around and spotted a nearby building that was still standing. It was a tall, abandoned office building with multiple floors. I quickly made my way towards it, using my agility to dodge the mutants' attacks. Once I reached the building, I ran inside and started making my way up the stairs. The mutants followed closely behind, but I was able to pick them off one by one as they climbed the stairs. As I reached the top floor, I could see that the roof was accessible. I quickly made my way up and found a spot to take cover. From there, I had a clear view of the mutants below. I started picking them off with my rifle, taking them out one by one. But they were relentless, and more kept coming. I realized that I needed backup if we were going to defeat them. I pulled out my radio and called for help, hoping that someone would hear my distress call. To my relief, I heard a voice on the other end. "This is Sarah, we heard your call for help." "We're on our way," the voice said. Within minutes, a group of survivors arrived at the settlement, armed and ready for battle. Together, we fought against the remaining mutants, taking them down one by one. It was a fierce and intense battle, but we were determined to protect our home. In the end, we were able to defeat the super mutants and save the settlement. We may have lost some people and resources, but we gained something even more valuable, a sense of unity and strength in the face of danger. As I looked around at my fellow survivors, covered in dirt and blood, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. We had proven that even in the harshest of environments, humanity can still come together and fight for a common cause. From that day on, I knew that no matter what challenges the wasteland threw at us, we would face them together, as survivors. The sirens blared through the streets, echoing off the buildings and sending chills down the spines of the people in the town. They had heard the rumors, seen the news reports, but they never actually believed it would happen. But here they were, running for their lives as the bombs started to drop. Among the chaos, a small group of people managed to make it to the vault. They were a mix of families, friends, and strangers, all seeking shelter from the impending doom. The large metal doors of the vault slowly creaked open, welcoming the frantic group inside. Once they were all safely inside, the doors sealed shut and the vault was sealed off from the outside world. The group let out a collective sigh of relief, grateful to have found shelter in the face of such destruction. The vault was a sight to behold. It was a large underground structure, with rows of rooms lining the walls. In the center was a large atrium, with plants and trees growing under artificial sunlight. The people were in awe, never having seen anything like it before. As they were shown to their respective rooms, they couldn't help but wonder about the purpose of this vault. The overseer, a stern man with a clipboard in hand, explained that this vault was designed to conduct an experiment. The people would be given tasks and responsibilities to keep the vault functioning and to ensure the survival of those inside. The people were given books that fell through the vents in their rooms, each containing their assigned tasks. Some were responsible for maintaining the food supply, others for keeping the power running, and some were given more secretive tasks that they were not allowed to discuss with anyone. As the days turned into weeks, the people settled into their new lives in the vault. They formed bonds with their neighbors, shared meals together, and even started families. But there was always a sense of unease, a feeling that something wasn't quite right. One day, the vault guards and the overseer disappeared. The people were left to fend for themselves, unsure of what had happened to the ones who were supposed to be in charge. As they searched for answers, they stumbled upon a hidden room in the vault. Inside the room, they found documents detailing the true purpose of the experiment. This vault was not meant to save them from the nuclear war, it was meant to test the effects of isolation on a group of people. The people were nothing but subjects in a twisted experiment. Feeling betrayed and angry, the people confronted the overseer who had been hiding in the vault all along. He explained that the experiment was meant to observe the effects of isolation on a group of people and how they would cope without any authority figures. But as time went on, the people started to realize that they didn't need an overseer or guards to tell them what to do. They had formed a community, and they were capable of surviving on their own. They decided to rebel against the overseer and take control of their own fate. They broke into the overseer's office and found a hidden control room. Inside, they discovered cameras and microphones, monitoring their every move. They quickly disabled the surveillance, determined to create a new society within the vault. The people elected a new leader, one who was fair and just, and together they created a new set of rules and guidelines for the vault. They worked together to make improvements and repairs to the vault, ensuring that it would be a safe and livable environment for generations to come. Years went by, and the people in the vault had created a thriving society. They had overcome the challenges of isolation and proved that they were more than just subjects in an experiment. They were survivors, and they had built a new home for themselves in the depths of the underground vault. The sirens may have signaled the end of the world, but for the people in the vault, it was the beginning of a new world. A world they had created for themselves, a world where they were the masters of their own fate. A world that was their own little piece of paradise in the midst of a nuclear wasteland. The sun was setting over the barren wasteland, casting an orange glow over the desolate landscape. The once bustling city was now reduced to rubble and ash, with only a few buildings still standing as a reminder of what once was. The bombs had dropped years ago, wiping out most of humanity and leaving behind a world filled with danger and despair. But amidst the ruins, there was a glimmer of hope. A small group of survivors had come together, determined to rebuild and start a new life. They called themselves the Pioneers, and their settlement, the First Town. The Pioneers had chosen the perfect location for their town, a small valley surrounded by mountains that provided natural protection. They had also discovered an underground water source, which meant they didn't have to venture far for water. It was a harsh environment, but it was their home. The leader of the Pioneers was a man named Marcus. He was a former soldier who had lost everything in the war. He was determined to ensure that the mistakes of the past were not repeated, and that the people of First Town had a chance at a better life. Under Marcus' guidance, the Pioneers worked tirelessly to build their town. They salvaged materials from the ruins and used their skills to construct new homes and buildings. It was a slow process, but they were making progress. One day, while out scavenging, a group of pioneers stumbled upon a cache of pre-war technology. They were amazed at the advanced gadgets and machinery they found, and they knew that this could greatly benefit their community. Marcus called a town meeting to discuss what to do with the newfound technology. Some suggested using it for their own personal gain, while others argued that it should be shared among everyone in the town. After much deliberation, Marcus made the decision to use the technology to improve the town as a whole. He believed that by working together, they could achieve much more than they could on their own. The pioneers set to work, using the technology to build a water filtration system, a power generator, and even a radio tower. As the town grew and prospered, more survivors began to arrive. They were amazed at what the pioneers had accomplished and were eager to join their community. Marcus welcomed them with open arms, knowing that they would need all the help they could get in order to survive in this harsh world. But with the growth of the town came new challenges. The pioneers had to deal with raiders, mutated creatures, and even rival settlements. Marcus knew that they needed to defend themselves, but he also didn't want to resort to violence. He came up with a solution: a council made up of representatives from each of the town's districts. This council would make decisions for the town as a whole and also act as a peacekeeping force. The council was a success, and the town was able to thrive without resorting to violence. Years went by, and First Town became a beacon of hope for other survivors. They had proven that even in the midst of devastation, humanity could come together and rebuild. The town became a trading hub, with caravans from other settlements coming to trade for their goods and services. But the pioneers never forgot the lessons of the past. They made sure to teach future generations about the dangers of war and the importance of working together for the greater good. And as the years went by, the town continued to grow and prosper. The pioneers had created a safe haven in the midst of chaos, and their legacy would live on for generations to come. Today, First Town still stands as a symbol of hope and resilience. The pioneers had not only rebuilt a town, but they had also rebuilt humanity. And as the sun sets over the barren wasteland, the people of First Town know that they have truly found a new home, a home that they had built with their own hands and their unbreakable spirit. The sun was setting on yet another day in the new world. The world that had been taken over by the undead. It had been 5 years since the outbreak began, and humanity had faced its darkest days. The streets were no longer filled with bustling crowds, but instead were quiet and eerie. The buildings showed signs of decay and destruction, a reminder of the chaos that had ensued. But amidst the destruction, there was a glimmer of hope. A group of survivors had banded together and created a safe haven in the midst of the ruins. They had managed to clear out a large apartment building and had fortified it with barricades and traps. It was now their home, their sanctuary from the dangers that lurked outside. One of the residents of this makeshift community was Sarah. She had been a nurse before the outbreak and had seen firsthand the devastation that the virus had caused. But she had also seen the resilience of the human spirit, and that was what had kept her going all these years. Sarah was in charge of the medical bay in the building. She had managed to scavenge enough medical supplies to treat minor injuries and illnesses. But the most important thing she had managed to find was a book on herbal medicine. It had been her saving grace, as it provided alternative ways to treat more serious injuries and illnesses. As the sun set, Sarah sat in her makeshift office, going through her medical supplies and making a list of things that needed to be restocked. She had just finished when there was a knock on her door. "Come in," she called out. The door opened and in walked Eric, one of the other survivors. He had been a construction worker before the outbreak and had been the one to fortify the building. "Hey Sarah, just wanted to check in and see if you needed anything before I head out on a supply run tomorrow," he said with a smile. Sarah smiled back. "Actually, I do need a few things. I need more bandages, antibiotics, and painkillers. Oh, and we're running low on herbal remedies as well." Eric nodded and made a note of it. "I'll make sure to get everything on the list. How's the situation in the medical bay?" "It's been pretty quiet lately. No major injuries or illnesses, thankfully. But I'm sure that won't last long," Sarah replied. Eric's face turned serious. "Yeah, we need to be prepared for anything. We've come a long way, but we can't let our guard down." Sarah nodded in agreement. The group had worked hard to create a safe and secure environment, but they were always aware that danger could still be lurking around the corner. As Eric was about to leave, Sarah remembered something. "Oh, I almost forgot. We have a new member joining us tomorrow. Her name is Lily, and she's a former botanist. She'll be a great asset to our community, especially with our dwindling supply of herbal remedies." Eric's face lit up. "That's amazing news. We could definitely use someone with her skills. I'll make sure to give her a warm welcome tomorrow." The two said their goodbyes and Eric left to finish up his tasks before it got too dark. Sarah sat back in her chair, feeling a sense of hope and optimism. The addition of Lily to their community was a sign that they were slowly but surely rebuilding their world. The next day, Lily arrived at the building. She was greeted with open arms and quickly settled in. She was given a room on the 3rd floor, which she shared with Sarah. The two women quickly bonded over their love for plants and their determination to rebuild a new world. Lily wasted no time in setting up a small garden on the rooftop of the building. She used whatever materials she could find to create a makeshift greenhouse, and soon enough, the rooftop was filled with different types of plants and herbs. Sarah was amazed by Lily's knowledge and skills. She had always been interested in herbal medicine, but Lily's expertise took it to a whole new level. The two worked together to create a fully functioning medical bay, complete with a wide variety of herbal remedies. With Lily's help, Sarah was able to treat more serious injuries and illnesses, reducing their dependency on traditional medicine. The community was thriving, and the survivors were grateful to have two such skilled individuals among them. As the months went by, the community continued to grow and prosper. They had managed to create a safe and self-sufficient environment, with Lily's garden providing them with fresh produce and herbs. The world may have been decimated by the undead, but the survivors had not given up. They had banded together and showed the world that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit could triumph. And with Sarah and Lily's skills, they were on their way to a brighter future.